we're here to learn from Jason Yomark. Jason is the president of Socialistics, which is a social media agency. And yeah, we basically want to talk all about what Socialistics is doing, which type of clients they work with, and also how Jason is thinking about, growth and interesting ways to grow your company online. So Jason, welcome to this episode.
Great, thank you for having me.
Cool. So tell us about Socialistics. What is it all about?
Sure. I launched Socialistics about 2 years ago. We are a B2B social media agency. We service a variety of different clients that predominantly live in the B2B space, so typically small to medium-sized businesses that have complex challenges to face. Managing social media for B2B clients is very different than B2C. It's a much longer sales funnel, so you really have to be pretty buttoned up and pretty strategic about the stories that you tell and how you track what you do. So we just kind of fell into the B2B space and just kind of built off of that because it is a little bit more involved than selling point and click products. So we service clients all across, mostly the US. We have a couple global clients as well. Some of our bigger clients, we've worked with the Air Force. We do a lot of recruiting for them. We've worked for Trupanion, which is the world's second largest pet insurance company. And then we also work with smaller companies that are startups that are just kind of getting started as well. So we do full service social media management end to end in terms of content, analytics, reporting, influencer campaigns, paid, everything across the board to help them drive real world business results.
Very good. So what type of clients, what type of companies? You alluded a little bit to it. There's international clients, there is national clients. What is there specific verticals or specific size of B2B clients that you would be working with?
Yeah, we haven't, we kind of ebb and flow in terms of vertical. Sometimes we just hit a hot spot, where we start to work with one type of client and then we kind of build off of that. I wouldn't say that we really focus on one specific vertical or industry quite yet. We are doing some work in that capacity. I would say really the definitive similarities between our clients are usually really comes down to businesses that don't have to be convinced that marketing is a thing that they need to do to grow their business, which you would think would be kind of common sense, but we come across quite a few opportunities where it takes a lot of convincing. And if we have to do that, then that's usually a red flag for us because we know that they're either going to have unrealistic expectations, they're going to turn it on and off, and that's just not going to be a good relationship for us because good marketing, good social media, it's a consistent effort. It's not something that you turn on and off. It's something that, hey, this is a line item in our operational budget, and as long as we find the right partner and they strategically point us in the right direction and they deliver results, this is a thing that we're going to continue to do. So it's really more along those lines in terms of consistency, in terms of who makes good clients for us. I mean, we can, typically that means they're probably north of at least $500,000 to $1 million in revenue. They probably have 30 to 50 employees on average, but that's usually the commonalities between them. There are many cases where it could be a startup and they've been invested in. So it's not cut and dry all the time. It really just comes down to, do they have a great product or service? Do they have a marketing budget? And can we actually help them? And if say yes to all of those three things, then they're going to be a good fit for us.
Very good. Very interesting. How do this type of companies usually find you? Like, how would you describe like a typical journey of somebody, identifying, learning about Socialistics and then becoming a customer?
Yeah, it's a combination of a couple things. This agency was bootstrapped by myself. So it's not like we started with some really big money or investment. So it really started small. And it was kind of almost a little bit of a side hustle for me until it kind of grew into being big enough for me to take the leap into doing it full time, which was about a year ago. So really, I would say right now we get a decent amount of organic inquiries for what we do. We've worked hard to kind of build a brand, to put out really great content, to make sure that we practice good SEO practices, and over time we've gotten to the point where now we're pretty much front page or in the beginning of the results for a lot of keyword terms that relate to what we do. Social media agency or social media agency Seattle. We're technically a vertical agency, but headquartered in Seattle. So we get a lot of organic inquiries. Directories, Clutch is a really big directory that has a lot of visibility. We've invested there Uh, Up City is another one. So the directories have a lot of visibility around the agency space. So we've really made sure to spend time to have a good profile there, really work with our clients to get a good number of reviews and really increase our visibility there. We've seen a lot of action from those directories because people are just landing there for those inquiries as well. We do a lot of cold outreach, a combination of, using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, tools like Seamless to identify folks in particular verticals that we might want to go after. When we worked with Trupanion, we went and kind of seeked out more pet insurance companies because we had a lot of experience in that space. So for trying to find decision makers through LinkedIn Sales Navigator, cold outreach, just trying to build relationships with people to just kind of to introduce them to the work that we've done, and really try to create organic opportunities to kind of just have conversations in hopes that leads to work for us. We are not a quick turn and burn agency. It takes time. Our funnels is long. So, but once we get the right client, they stick with us for a long time. So that's typically the best way for us to find the right clients, knowing that, we have to put in the work.
Okay. And what role would your website play in all of that, the journey that you were just describing? How would you describe the role of your own website?
Pretty significant. We just had it redesigned and redeveloped actually a couple months ago. We relaunched it in January, February of this year. We invested quite a bit in that to kind of give it a better look and feel, really focus on the key components that differentiate us, and really just give the user a sense of sophistication. Like they feel like, oh, this is an agency that's got their act together. And while our first website wasn't bad by any means, it didn't have that level of sophistication and polish that we felt we needed to have to really attract the right type of client for us. And we're big proponents of brand and storytelling, and we feel like you really got to lock those things in, because how the feeling and the presence that somebody gets when they're looking at your website, especially for a virtual agency like this, is everything. So it plays a fairly significant role in who we attract and who ultimately that we work with.
Yeah. No, I'm just on your website here right now, and I can attest to that. Like, it has a very, very, specifically for an agency, because very often agencies put a lot of services like front and forward, and you guys have it very clean. I really like that. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Good. So, okay, that's very interesting. So, in terms of the clients that you're working with, how far along the funnel are you supporting them? Is that sort of, stopping with somebody going from social over to their website, or, until which point are you with the customer?
Yeah, I would say about 75 to 80% of what we do lives in the social media space. So we're managing their content. We are managing their paid efforts on Facebook or Instagram. We're helping them, at least driving them in terms of making sure that their landing page strategy is where it needs to be to ensure the work that we're doing can be tracked and attributed to the work that we're doing. Sometimes we'll come across clients that have needs in search. We used to do some SEO, but we've moved away from SEO and have focused more on PPC, mainly because we're in the B2B space. And I find that PPC is a better option for our types of clients because, again, they're not a light switch marketing type of client. They can afford to spend money on marketing and always will. So it makes more sense for them to invest in areas that are immediately measurable, and like they like to see the results. So we kind of push them towards more PPC related efforts. We're not an SEO agency. We don't pretend to be. So, if that's something that they want to do, we make those recommendations. But we really just try to make sure that their house is in order before they spend a lot of money telling everybody about it. And sometimes that involves some website direction. And our bread and butter is social, but if they have needs in other areas, we help them connect the dots, either through providing them strategic direction or making an introduction to a trusted partner to kind of help them with some of the other areas that maybe isn't in our wheelhouse.
Very interesting. So here at Pathmark, obviously, we talk a lot about conversions on the website. I'm very curious, your unique angle, because your team is responsible, obviously, for bringing people from social, ideally, I guess, in many cases, to landing pages or websites.
Sure.
Like, what have you learned? Maybe what is some insights that you maybe could share in regards to what is important when you're bringing leads from social to your website versus you bringing a lead from, PPC, for example?
Sure.
What is
So I think,
maybe something comes to mind?
It's really two key components. One of the things that we, when I decided to start an agency, I was torn because I've been a marketer my whole life, 20 plus years. So I've worked in different facets of marketing, but I knew that it would be very hard to compete and start an agency and trying to be everything to everybody. If I really wanted to carve out a nice piece of the pie, I knew that I would have to kind of pick a lane, and not so much from a vertical standpoint, but from like a specialization. So that's why we decided to do social. And so for me, I knew that I couldn't surround myself with people that were jacks of all trades. I think I needed people that had depth versus breadth. And I'm the breadth guy. Like, I know enough about everything to speak to it and sell it, but I need people that have depth. So I need a paid ad strategist. I need people that really know how to push the right levers and buttons on Facebook to maximize the return on running ads there. They've been trained, they have a ton of experience around it. I know when I give them a client and they're going to do Facebook advertising, they're the very best at that. They have that depth and they're going to do an incredible job. Same thing with the social media. I need storytellers. I need people that are really great writers. I need people that are great visual designers. So I make sure that I hire people that are very specific in what they do and keep them in that lane, because that ensures that the clients are getting the very best of everything. And then when you combine that team-based effort, then everything just works. So, and we are, another big differentiator for us is we're not about vanity metrics like Facebook likes, Twitter followers, web traffic. Like, these things all play a part, but we are about leads. We are about leads. We are about sales. We're about whatever it is that business needs to drive to be successful, because that's how we continue to work with them long term. We're a month-to-month agency. We don't do long-term contracts, so we have to deliver every month. So we are focused on leads. We are focused on sales. We are making sure that the work that we're doing can be tied to those efforts so that they can make that connection and say, hey, we're spending this with them. They're getting it done. It's moving our business. This is a good partner. So that we have to kind of take them there.
Makes sense. What did you learn when looking at maybe something even surprising or that surprised you in terms of what makes, what are maybe typical mistakes that B2B companies do when it comes to actually winning the leads out of the social traffic? Is there maybe some common themes that you're seeing, or is it just so unique to everybody?
I would say some of the things that stand out in terms of where B2B companies make mistakes, lack of consistency or patience. An expectation that they're going to turn this on and it's going to immediately change their world, which does not happen. When you're talking about B2B, you're talking about a longer funnel. So you really have to have a buttoned up content strategy that hits people in different ways, whether it's a Facebook ad, whether it's your social media, whether it's using search marketing, your website. Like, all of these things play a part in taking that person down that funnel. So it takes time to figure that out. I tell all of our clients, we're going to have to test things. We're going to have to figure out what works. What's the right content mix in terms of language and visuals, and where we use it and when we use it and how we invest in our paid strategies. Like, we're going to have to test some things. We come at them with a strategy that we think makes sense, but 99% of the time after doing it for an extended period of time, we learn, okay, well, this isn't working, or we need to tweak here, or this strategy is really killing it. Let's refocus our efforts. So they have to have an appetite for patience to see it through. So a lot of businesses just have that, we live in this world where everything's immediate. Like, you can order something on Amazon and have it literally the same day. So people have this mentality of instant gratification. And in the B2B space, it doesn't really work like that. You have to have some patience and realistic expectations that it's going to take time. It's going to take testing. So a lot of them, I think, fail because they lose patience. So they just don't let it really permeate as long as it needs to figure out what success looks like for them. So that's probably the biggest one, the biggest takeaway. And part of it's just not you got to find you have to find a good partner. Like, if you don't find a good agency that has your best interests in mind and is working with you authentically, that can often lead to kind of wasted time as well. So just making good decisions with agencies and having the patience to see it through.
Okay, maybe one last follow-up questions on the leads, as we're speaking about that at the moment. What have you seen as the biggest blockers that people have in their social to website to lead flow that keep on repeating, or maybe just one advice that you could give there, if for a team that is maybe listening in, B2B team, what is blockers that you usually see on that flow?
They don't have the right technology in place to connect social to their lead. Okay. Typically, a lot of the clients that we come across just have a lack of sophistication or haven't really thought it through. They're just thinking about surface level problems like, oh, our Facebook page is dead. We need to get content on there. So they're not looking under the hood.
Mhm.
Like, well, that's great. Like, you're right. Like, we want to have some activity there, but what's your goal and objective? Well, we want to drive leads. Okay, well, how many leads and over what extended period of time? Like, how many leads do you want to drive per month? So you really kind of zero in on what the short and long-term goals are. Then once you figure that out, it's like, okay, now we need to be able to make sure that you have the right technology stack in place to make sure that when we do something here, and then you get something over here, that they're connected. So it's really just making sure that they have those pieces in place, whether it's us doing the heavy lifting or working with them to figure out their internal resources, who we have to kind of help navigate to get the things in place that we need to ensure, so that when we do that work for them, we can report back to them properly and say, not only did we increased engagement, we increased audience, like all those things are easy. We can do that on our own. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to say, we did this and it resulted in this amount of leads for you.
Yep.
And that's what they want to hear. So we have to make sure the technology is in place. Nine times out of 10, it always is more smooth and works better if we're able to do that for them.
Yep.
But sometimes there are clients that, are bigger organizations that we have to kind of work within their constraints to kind of get them there. And that can often take a little bit longer because you have multiple layers to kind of deal with.
Got you. Any recommendations that you could give for the listeners on this sort of tracking of sort of social source to lead, mapping basically?
Yeah, it's been interesting. We've actually found more success, even if a client has an existing website, oftentimes just for the sake of getting them to a trackable place quickly, just to create some momentum and signals that gets them confident to kind of continue to invest. We'll often just say, hey, let us create a separate landing page for you for this specific campaign. So using something like Get Response, or some sort of landing page platform like that, that's just quick and easy, where we can get something up. It doesn't require them to do anything, and we can just quickly and easily navigate and create some momentum for them. So that's we found some success with that. Now it may mean that we have to pivot, and once we kind of build that trust with them, then we can kind of open up the door to kind of figuring out maybe a longer term strategy that might involve their specific website to better benefit from SEO instead of having a separate thing. But it really just depends on the client and what the roadblocks are. We've just found that when they give us the keys to the car and they let us do our thing and give us some room to move, that we can get to a results oriented space a lot more quickly. And we're very big on that because, again, being a month-to-month agency, we have to get there quickly to win their trust so that they continue to work with us. So we just find that using platforms that are really geared and already kind of plugged into tracking things and connecting with things quickly is a better path to success, and gets us there more quickly.
Okay, makes complete sense. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you as a leader, a little bit of the company. What type of content do you sort of consume, and where do you learn about, sort of improving your skills and knowledge?
Yeah, I consume a lot. Like, I use tools like Feedly to connect to a lot of social media and marketing blogs. I would say the biggest source of learning for me at this stage of where I'm at is more around agency leadership. And I listen to Jason Swank. I listen to all of his stuff. He does a ton of really more agency leadership, agency growth hacks, those sorts of things. That really kind of gives a little bit more perspective of me as an agency owner. How can I think about how to grow my agency in the right way and the things that I need to be thinking about? I've had to force myself to kind of remove away from the day-to-day and tactical, like surround myself with incredible people and get out of their way. Like, I'm not involved in the tactical stuff every day. So I don't spend as much time staying as savvy with how to be a great Facebook ad navigator or things along those that I can't. Like, there's only so much time in the day. So really my focus is more around agency podcasts. Obviously podcasts are just blowing up, so I'm fascinated by that. It's an easy way to consume information. Josh Nelson is another guy that I follow, who's been really interesting around agency growth and how you need to be more niche focused. So those are two kind of thought leaders around agencies that I've spent a decent amount of time consuming, information around, that's been super helpful and kind of helping me navigate our agency.
Cool. Very good. What would be a topic, maybe one last topic that you recently researched, maybe, and really sort of focused in? Anything that comes to mind?
There is. I would say, I'm really passionate about technology, especially for our agency, because we're so remote focused. Like my team is spread out across the world, so we really rely on tools like Slack and a variety of different tools to kind of help us communicate and stay organized. So I would say, one of the interesting tools, I've spent a ton of time during this pandemic around uh, personally researching cold outreach, like how to master the art
Mhm.
of cold outreach and to do it in a way that's respectful and responsible and targeted. And I've just exhaustively looked at so many different options for that in terms of how do you find the right people, and then how do you get their contact information, and then how do you craft messaging that actually stands out and gets a response. And I spent so much time around that. And ultimately, where I landed, it's really a combination of just manual work, and we're using Seamless.ai as a tool that we're using.
Mhm.
I went back and forth on a lot, and they just, between them having a really good offer for, this current situation that we're in, clean, easy to use, combining that with just creating some targeted lists and LinkedIn Sales Navigator to find decision makers. When you combine those two things, it really gets us to a place where we're really able to find the right people, usually 75% of the time getting their contact info, and then just really dialing in messaging that speaks specifically to them. So we did that vertically based for pet insurance, and we're just able to kind of point to the work that we did. So that's an area that I've really spent over the past 2 months kind of dialing that in as we grow and being able to pass on that learning and the technology that we invest in for our sales team as we grow it.
Nice. Any favorite resource for the messaging crafting that really helped you to, see that from a different angle, or was it just sort of a summary of everything that you went through?
There wasn't one particular tool. I think it's really just more doing a little bit of Google searching on, great cold email messaging, just kind of learning from people that have done it. And just, you got to read a lot. I think that there isn't one definitive resource that's going to tell you how to craft something that's going to get it done. I
Hmm.
think you kind of just, you need to read a lot of it and see what the common threads are in terms of successful approaches. We've used Mailshake is another tool that we kind of landed on in terms of, they provide a lot of really great free content to kind of help you navigate not only how to great messaging, but to make sure your messages get to those people. There's all this stuff about setting up your domains and your servers the right way, so your mails, it's crazy stuff. So I just watched a ton of YouTube videos to really kind of figure that stuff out. But they have some really great content about how to message. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to figure out what makes you different, and what stories do you have to tell that are going to stand out. And you do that just basically by talking about specific things that or work that you've done or experience that you have that relates specific to this individual. So it's pretty time consuming, but we've put that in play, and our results have been way better than they've ever been after having invested that time in it.
Awesome. Very good. Okay, so since we're coming to the end of the interview, let's jump into the rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Sure, I'm ready.
Awesome.
Let's see it.
Okay, so for your company, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word marketing operations?
The first thing that comes to mind when I think I'm just the first thing that comes to mind is just having a buttoned up technology stack as a remote agency, just making sure that we've done a good job of having the right tools in place to make sure that we can stay connected, because it's hard when you're in different places, but we've done a really good job. So that's been a critical component for us.
Cool. So what comes to mind when I say the word sales operations?
Sales operations, high, you need to hire really great people. I just was able to kind of work through that a bit. So, in terms of getting that right, is you need to surround yourself with people that are invested in what you're doing and are on board and can put in the time and effort.
Awesome. What's one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
I would say operational excellence.
Mhm,
We need to make sure that we are rock stars for our clients.
mhm. Just three more questions to go. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you want to have fixed today for your clients?
Hmm. I would say breaking down the complexity of Facebook's ad platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's very complicated and time consuming.
Mm-hmm. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about your company?
Client retention.
Mm-hmm. And very last question, if this would be your very first day running the company, right? You just stepped out the door, this is your first day. What's one advice that you would give yourself?
I would say that the highs are never as high as they are and the lows are never as low as they are, and that you have to just keep pushing and stay the course and not let extreme thinking derail you too much.
I think that's a very, very good one for everybody out there, probably including myself. Thanks a lot for that,
Yeah,
Jason. I really
yeah, for
appreciate
sure,
you being part of the show. I really appreciate you giving us, what you guys are doing with Socialistics and
for sure.
your personal journey. So thanks a lot for being part of this episode.
Awesome. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.